Now, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Some Star Wars, the first one in quite a while, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll that asked you, what do you think of The Bad Batch so far? I'll then be reading and responding to some of your comments, as well as showing off some of the artwork that's been sent my way. And speaking of that artwork, because it's been a while since I've done one of these and shown any off, and because I'm not always great at keeping up with email and or being organized, I may have missed some art that's been sent my way. Basically, if you've sent me something in the last few months and you don't see it in this video, do not take it personally or anything like that, and do feel free to send it to me again. Okay, so now let's get to the results of the poll, where we'll see that 41% of voters said that The Bad Batch has been fantastic thus far, 31% said it's been good, 7% said it's okay, while only 1% said it hasn't been very good. There was then another 20% of voters who said they hadn't seen it yet, and when we take those numbers out, well, then it turns into 51% of people who have actually seen it think it's been fantastic, 39% say it's been good, 9% say it's been only okay, and still only roughly 1% say it's not very good. And needless to say, but those are some pretty impressive numbers. 90% of the audience, of those who have seen it, think it's good, and most of them think it's fantastic. And it would be interesting to know, of those people who haven't seen it or haven't watched it, why they haven't seen it. Do they have no interest in it? Are they waiting to watch it all at once? Do they not have Disney Plus, perhaps? Just what is the reason? But anyway, let's dig a little deeper now and get to your comments. But not before I say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches the videos. It's all very much appreciated. And I'm sorry it's been a while since I've done one of these. I've kind of been caught up in just doing the Battle of the Heroes and Villains series, which is very similar to these videos. But anyway, let's begin, as we always do, with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from E1, who said, "Only complaint so far is the episodes are too short. They get really interesting right before the end." And yeah, I do agree, and I do wish the episodes were a bit longer, especially considering it's not like they have to conform to a set time like they did or would when it was on a cable network. And I can only guess, though I'm no expert on this sort of thing, that since this is animated and literally every second of animation has to be, well, animated, it has to be literally created by someone, and that someone has to be paid, they may have a set amount of time per episode that they're allotted in order to keep costs at a certain level, or the bigwigs at Disney will get upset. Though if that is the case, if they have what amounts to a minute or time cap for the season or something along those lines, I think an argument could be made for less overall episodes but make them longer. I mean, I really enjoyed the 70-minute premiere, which felt like a mini movie. However, if they did that, I think they would defeat a bit of their own purpose, which is to have this run for as long as possible so that they can keep people subscribed, which is of course why they just don't release all the episodes at once and let people binge watch like, say, Netflix does. Alright, and now to our next comment, which comes to us from Caleb, which was just 2 thumbs up shy of tying for our top-rated comment, and he had this to say. "I love that they aren't shying away from getting a bit darker and brutal sometimes like Rebels did," and then he has an edit saying that he meant that Rebels shies away from brutality a lot. We also then had this comment from Nick Vegas, who said, "I'm loving it so far, a great sequel to Clone Wars without worrying as much about pulling punches for the younger audience." Then also this one from the Second Sons, who said, "As a fan who doesn't like Rebels, this already beats it out of the park." And as I've said before, I do think that Rebels suffered, if that's even the right word, from being on Disney XD and having to hold to a Y7 rating, which isn't to say you can't or should never make a Star Wars show aimed almost strictly at kids. And I'm not saying Rebels was strictly aimed at kids. It does have some dark moments here and there. Only that after what Clone Wars was, which set the bar really high for Star Wars animation all around, and I mean visually, story-wise, maturity level, and so on, I think Rebels felt like a letdown or a step back to a lot of fans. Though, in my opinion at least, I think it's a pretty good show in its own right. It'd be probably thought of higher if Clone Wars never existed, and it has some terrific episodes, absolutely, but it's no Clone Wars. And thus far, all around, Bad Batch has felt a lot more like Clone Wars, or like Tyler Prather said in his comment here, it almost feels like a Season 8 of Clone Wars. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Theo Dent, who said, "When I first heard Disney announce this show, I admittedly wasn't very keen, as The Bad Batch never quite struck me as a spin-off sequel material. That said, I'm very happy to say that I have thoroughly enjoyed every episode so far, and I'm excited to see what it holds in store. I love how we're finally showing the transition between the Republic and the Empire in mainstream material. Then there's also this comment from Stuart Lehman who said, I've enjoyed it more than I thought I would, as well as enjoying it for different reasons than I thought I would. 9 out of 10 so far. Episode 3 is my favorite. Next up, we have this one from Scott Gray who said, I'm warming up to it. As someone who felt the squad was one-dimensional in their Season 7 appearance, and that the first episode had to spend a lot of time setting things up, I thought the last 2 episodes were pretty interesting. There's been a good blend of expanding on the lore and serving as a sequel to Clone Wars, while staying focused on a mostly interesting group of characters so far. Also here we have this one from Elijah W. Star Wars who said, honestly thought it was just going to be a surface level show of the Bad Batch beating people up, but I love how it has built a lot of complexity and depth in the characters and themes. Really excited to see where it goes. Then there's this one from Carly Craze who said, when this show was first announced, I groaned. I groaned when I first saw Omega and when it became clear that their chips wouldn't work. But now I am really loving this series. It's dark, it's so well connected to the rest of the lore, and Omega is adorable. And I can certainly relate because my first reaction to hearing that the Bad Batch was going to be getting a whole animated series was, why them? And it's not that I didn't think their arc in Season 7 of Clone Wars was good, I just didn't think they could carry their own show. They were pretty much all one-dimensional cliche characters. You have strong guy, smart guy, intuitive leader, and so on. And I was pretty much just hoping everything else around them that we saw and learned would be cool and interesting, that it'd be nice to see this time period in animation and how the Republic was turned into an empire and how people felt about it. Thought there might be some cool cameos along the way. And though we've gotten all of that, and I expect more of it, thankfully plenty of time and effort has gone into turning the Bad Batch into characters, especially Hunter and Crosshair so far. And I expect the same for Tech and Wrecker along the way. And hopefully Echo too. I think he's been the most neglected so far, and that's probably because he's the most well-known of the group. Anyway, that all kind of brings us to this comment from Bianchi who said, I don't know man, it's kind of boring right now, only Hunter and Crosshair have something to do narratively. It reminds me a lot of the basic Clone Wars plots that are fine but don't leave you with anything after the fact. The animation is really good though. And yeah, I do see where you're coming from. I just said moments ago that only Crosshair and Hunter so far have really had time to shine, and I think they really have shined. However, in time, I do think they'll flesh the whole team out. I think they opened with a bang with that first episode, that mini movie, and the next 2 episodes have slowed down a bit to let us get to know and care about these characters. And I do expect us to soon start building to some sort of climactic finale for the season, which will almost undoubtedly involve Omega having to save her or something and learning a lot more about her. And Crosshair too, probably trying to save him as well from something or just trying to get the chip out of his head, but maybe failing because I see Crosshair being with the Empire for a while yet, but who knows, I could be wrong. Alright, and moving on then, we have this comment from Paul Coaster who said, at first I worried that they were going to try to recycle the success of Mando plus Grogu via Hunter plus Omega, but so far they've managed to put a different spin on that relationship. And yeah, I think obviously there are a lot of similarities between this and The Mandalorian, but I think the big difference is that The Bad Batch, in large part, is going to be about the growth and development of Omega herself. She's really going to be a main character that's focused on, and will have a very extensive arc across however many seasons this ends up being. Whereas Grogu in The Mandalorian, he doesn't really get developed. Yes, we certainly see him do a few more things and learn more about him along the way. But The Mandalorian isn't about Grogu, the character. It's about Din Djarin's relationship with this child, changing because of him and trying to figure out what to do with him, what's best for him. So yes, similar in premise, absolutely, but much different in actual execution of that premise. Alright, and our next comment then comes to us from Resident TDK007 who said, never noticed how awesome the Bad Batch's theme was until the end credits of the series. Kevin Kiner is still doing great music. Personally, I think Kevin Kiner doesn't get anywhere near enough credit for what he's done for all these animated shows, that he's basically the John Williams of animation for Star Wars. Because everything he does, it sounds like Star Wars. It has that Williams vibe or feel. But there's a lot of cool twists, a lot of originality in his work as well. It's not just copy and paste. And some of my favorite Star Wars pieces of all time are from him. I especially love his Ahsoka's theme and the different ways he's used it over the years for different parts of her life. Moving on then, our next comment comes to us from Lingfin, who said, I need Cody. I need Cody to show up somewhere. I was expecting him in Rebels, and now I need to see him in this. Also have this one from the Reb Jedi Show, who said, it's fine, but I kind of wish we had a similar show like this, but with the Regs. Like focusing on Rex, Gregor, Wolf, especially Wolf after what happened with Plo Koon. And it's crazy to think that one of my favorite parts of the Clone Wars series, maybe the favorite part, is the clones themselves. It's incredible how they turned something that was just kind of there in the prequels. We didn't really know or care much about the clones themselves. They were essentially living droids for all we knew, other than Cody, who had a few speaking lines. But anyway, speaking of Cody, it's got to be just a matter of time before he shows up in this series, because though I'm fine with what they've been doing with the Bad Batch, it's been fantastic so far, I do want more from the Regs as well, and I think Cody is the perfect choice to get that perspective from. Alright, and our next comment comes to us from Red-Haired Shanks, who said, like every other Disney project after the sequels, it's just plain average, but hyped because of how bad the sequel trilogy was. That's why all the characters other than the main ones in your polls get a B or a C. Everything is just average. Supporting shows like this means support for Kathleen Kennedy, that greenlights those shows and how she is trying to do damage control for the sequels, with these shows trying to tie things together. And I will agree with you that, to an extent, and we can debate just how much, people did enjoy The Mandalorian more or thought highly of it because they had been let down by the sequels, though there are also people who loved the sequels and loved The Mandalorian as well. However, I do have to disagree that supporting the Bad Batch is the same as supporting Kennedy, because this show, for all intents and purposes, is the continuation of the Clone Wars, the continuation of something that started before her time, and that she probably has virtually no creative say in beyond maybe just saying to greenlight it. And so, in many ways, I think it's backing what Star Wars was before she got on scene. It's backing what Filoni did with Lucas, with the Clone Wars, and so on. Though I suppose that's assuming the higher-ups at Disney know and understand the difference. Alright, and before my voice gives out on me, let me just get to a few final comments here, and I apologize if I've sounded off or scratchy in this video. But anyway, let's kick it off with this one from 777927, who said, it's actually 10 times better than I expected it to be. Then this one from Adrian C, who said, I really like how it is filling in the questions on how the Republic made the change to the Empire. It seems like it's going to cover a lot of details that were left unanswered by Revenge of the Sith. Also this one from Arjun, who said, I like it. Omega is serving a beautiful role as a wide-eyed kid experiencing the galaxy for the first time. This sense of wonder rubs off on the audience. Heck, they got us to once again appreciate the miracle of a hyperspace jump. Then we have this comment from David Maddox, who said, I am quite pleased. The Crosshair issue has been well written, and I expect they will rescue him at some point. I hope so. The team is incomplete without him. They are like the A-team in space. Can't wait for Darth Vader to make an appearance. Also have a comment here from Hendrik, who said, despite that one Kanan story being overwritten in the first episode, which I am willing to ignore, it was perfect so far. Can't wait for more. Then there's this comment from Jackson W, who said, Filoni just breathes life into the franchise. Every time I sit down to watch something he's attached to, I feel like a kid watching Star Wars for the first time. It's so lovely. We also have this one from Kyle Morey, who said, it and The Mandalorian have made me excited for Star Wars again. I hope so much that Thrawn makes an appearance in this show, and that he's a unifying element to all the shows and stories coming out in this time frame. He's a Thanos-level villain in both competency and depth of character, and more importantly, makes sense to be in these areas in this time frame. One can hope at least, and I'm hoping hard. And finally here we have this comment from JC King, who said, I've really liked it so far. Besides the fact that the animation is like mind-blowingly amazing, I think the story is pretty good. It's obviously in that kind of awkward beginning phase where things are just starting to get set up and going and all that, but I think it's been going in a good direction so far. Really interesting to see the start of the Empire from a clone's perspective. I'm sure as it goes on, it'll get better and better. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you've thought of the Bad Batch so far. Are you loving it? Are you hating it? Are you somewhere in between? Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.